Emmanuel was the last straw that broke the camel's back as long as Clara was concerned. He took her heart and tore it into a million pieces. Clara stopped believing in love. She even considered joining a convent. After a string of heartbreaks, she'd convinced herself it wasn't for her. She used to dream about slow dances, shared meals, someone who understood and loves her deeply, the fairy tales kind of love. But all she ever got were excuses and goodbyes, so she gave up. She walked, she slept, and just existed. 3 years later, Clara met Ronald on a rainy Thursday in Windmere, a quiet city with grey skies and small coffee shops on every block. She was sitting by herself at a corner table, pretending to read, when he sat across from her with a warm smile and no explanation. She didn't ask why. She just looked at him and felt something she hadn't in years. She was curious. Ronald didn't feel like the others. He wasn't trying too hard. He didn't make big promises. He asked her questions and listened to the answers. He walked her home but never pushed to come in. He showed up at the shop where she worked just to drop off her favorite snack. He remembered little things she mentioned in passing, like how she used to hum when nervous, or how she always wanted to learn how to ride a bike properly. Her dream dates, which he made sure he fulfilled. Their first kiss happened in front of her house, just like the kind of scene she used to watch in those late-night Korean dramas. Ronald had walked her home after a quiet dinner where they talked about everything and nothing. The night air was cool, the sky clear, and the street was empty except for the soft glow of the porch lights. She turned to thank him, hand already on the doorknob, her heart steady but full. Ronald smiled and stepped back like he was about to leave, giving her that same warm look he always did. She smiled back, half expecting nothing, half hoping for something. Then, just as she turned toward the door, he gently grabbed her hand and spun her around to face him. It was smooth but unhurried. Their eyes met. He didn't say anything. He just leaned in and kissed her. It was slow and full, like time had stopped just for them. There was no music playing, no camera crew, no audience. Just two people who had both been broken in different ways finally finding something whole. Clara didn't pull away. She closed her eyes and melted into the kiss, letting herself forget every reason she had ever told herself to be careful. In that moment, it felt like home. It was soft, slow, the kind of kiss that made her forget all the names of the people who had hurt her before. From then on, they were always together. They cooked together, danced in their living room, left notes for each other whenever they visited each other. On weekends, they took road trips with no destination. They fought sometimes, but even that felt safe. He never left. He never made her feel too much or not enough. 2 years later, he proposed. It was in their kitchen. While she was brushing flour off her hands, he didn't have a speech, just a ring and a look in his eyes that said, "This is it. I'm not going anywhere." She cried and he held her. On their wedding day, the sky in Windmere was clear. For once, she wore a simple white dress, nothing dramatic, but looked very beautiful and elegant. Her hands didn't shake when she held his. The ceremony was small, just people they loved. When the moment came and the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," Clara leaned in with her whole heart. But just as her lips were about to meet his, she heard something. A voice, soft and distant voice calling her name. She froze and the sound came again, this time louder. She tried to push through it, to reach Ronald, but something pulled her away. Her name echoed louder and louder until everything blurred and faded. And then, she woke up. Her mother stood at the edge of her bed, nudging her gently. The morning light poured into her small bedroom. Her hands were empty. No ring, no dress, no Ronald. Her chest ached in a way that didn't make sense. She sat up slowly, heart racing, trying to piece together what was real and what wasn't. The laughter, the kisses, the road trips, the wedding, it had all felt so real. But it was just a dream. Imagine meeting someone in your dream for the first time only to wake up and meet that person in real life. Clara sat by her window, her eyes fixed on the streets below. The morning had moved on, but she hadn't. Her fingers clutched the edge of the curtain like it could help her hold on to the feeling that had shaken her awake, the warmth of Ronald's hand, the softness of his kiss, the way he had looked at her like she was everything. It had been a dream. That much she knew, but it didn't feel like one. And then she saw him. He was walking down the street, casual, like he had every reason to be there. Same brown hair, build, and face. It was Ronald. The same Ronald. She stood up too fast and almost knocked over her mug. Her heart pounded. She rushed outside. He was there on the sidewalk, real and breathing, not a figment. He glanced at her briefly, and then kept walking. No recognition, no spark, nothing like the dream. For a while, Clara thought maybe she was dreaming again, but she wasn't. She saw him again 2 days later, across the street from the same bakery where she often grabbed her morning coffee. This time, she followed him at a distance. She felt ridiculous, but she didn't stop. She learned that his name was Ronald. He worked at a design firm across town, drove a Highlander Jeep, and lived alone in an apartment above a bookstore. He wasn't charming like the Ronald in her dream. He didn't smile easily. He didn't look at her like she mattered. They officially met a week later. She had bumped into him outside a bookstore, where he was picking up something during lunch break. He was polite, but distant. Barely made eye contact, and his voice was dry, almost annoyed. Still, Clara believed it meant something. Because how could she dream about a man so real? His touch, his habits, his laugh, before she ever laid eyes on him. How could she dream about someone who existed in the exact shape and form, down to the way he carried his bag and ran a hand through his hair when stressed? Her friends thought she was losing it. They told her to let it go, that it was just a coincidence, that she was projecting a fantasy onto someone who wasn't interested. But Clara couldn't let go. She wasn't chasing him because he was perfect. In fact, Ronald wasn't even kind. He dismissed her attempts at small talk, rolled his eyes when she tried to strike up a conversation, once even told her she was being a little much. But Clara believed in the dream. She believed destiny had shown her what could be, that there was more beneath his guarded face, that maybe he hadn't dreamed it, but she had, and that had to mean something. She started driving by his office sometimes, just to see if he was there. Sometimes she saw him laughing with co-workers, and it felt strange. In her dream, he'd only ever smiled like that at her. It made her stomach twist. She kept a journal where she wrote down everything she learned about him. Favorite snack, usual route to work, the way he never wore watches. She memorized his routines. Even after seeing Ronald with another woman, even after her friends begged her to let it go and move on, she convinced herself there was more to the story, that maybe Ronald was just scared, that maybe he needed someone to love him the way she had seen in her dream. She told herself over and over again, he's the one. He has to be. And eventually, Ronald gave in. It wasn't romantic. He didn't confess any hidden love or show signs of some deep realization. He just stopped pushing her away. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he liked the attention. Maybe he thought she'd finally stop if he let her in. Whatever the reason, they started seeing each other. It didn't take long for Clara to notice that the Ronald she had dreamt of was nowhere to be found in real life. This Ronald was cold. He rarely texted first. He didn't hold doors. He didn't listen to her stories. He made fun of the way she got excited about little things. He never asked her what she wanted or how she felt. And yet, Clara stayed. When they started sleeping together, she thought maybe things would change, that once he saw her heart, he'd fall into it, but instead, he pulled further away. Then, he started staying out late. At first, he'd say he was with friends. Then, he stopped explaining. Clara began finding unfamiliar perfume on his clothes, and once, a lipstick stain on his collar. She knew, deep down, but she still clung to the memory of the dream, the fake kiss, the fake love, the fake life. They got married quietly, without celebration. Her family didn't show up. Her friends had all drifted away. The ceremony was small, not because they wanted it that way, but because no one wanted to be there. After marriage, things got worse. Ronald started shouting and being violent. Sometimes he wouldn't come home for days. Sometimes she'd hear him whispering on the phone at night, laughing softly. She stopped asking questions. The more she asked, the more she hurt. Clara would stare at herself in the mirror and whisper, "But I dreamed of him." It was so real. Her dream had become her prison. She had turned away everyone who loved her for a man who didn't even like her. She had chased an illusion until it destroyed her. And in the silence of their cold apartment, she finally understood. The dream wasn't a prophecy. It wasn't a sign. It was just a dream. Sometimes dreams are just those soft lies our minds tell us in the quiet of night. Nothing more. They don't always mean something. they don't always come true, and they shouldn't be chased at the expense of real life. One morning, Clara packed a small bag and walked out. She just left. She moved to another city, got a small job at a bookstore, and started therapy. Slowly rebuilt the bridges she had burned. And whenever she thought of Ronald Daydream version, or the real one, she reminded herself of the truth she had learned the hard way. Not everything beautiful in your mind is meant to live in your reality. Sometimes, dreams are just dreams, and that's okay.